this war has been covered by the Palestinian journalists living in Gaza while living through it.
I'm the world's Marco Werman, and I am with the world's Shirin Jaafari. Shirin, hello. Good to see you.
Hey, Marco. Good to see you too.
So, Shirin, recently you reported on the targeted killing by the Israel Defense Forces of Anas Al-Sharif, a very well-known Palestinian journalist with Al Jazeera. Who was Anas Al-Sharif and what happened exactly?
Anas Al-Sharif was a reporter for Al Jazeera. He'd been reporting on the war since the beginning, and he was killed on August 10th along with 5 other journalists when their media tent was hit in an Israeli airstrike. And he leaves behind 2 young children and his wife. But Marco, I should point out that months before he was killed, Anas talked about being targeted by the Israeli military. The military had claimed that he was part of Hamas, and that is why he's being targeted. This is a claim that he denied, but the military also put out pictures of Anas with top Hamas officials. Some critics have pointed out that it doesn't really mean anything if you are a journalist and you have pictures with top politicians, because as part of your work, you might have taken those pictures. And also the Committee to Protect Journalists put out a statement, and it said this was part of an Israeli smear campaign. I'm quoting from their statement, and they said that the evidence that they put out is unsubstantiated, and that Anas's life is in, quote, acute danger. Anas's father, 90-year-old father, was also killed in an Israeli airstrike on his home. And weeks after Anas had received telephone threats from the Israeli military telling him to stop working as a journalist and get out of northern Gaza. Anas was, Marco, had become this sort of household name. He was on TV a lot. He was reporting basically 24/7, and he reported everything that was taking place in Gaza. And I talked to some of his colleagues, and they told me that anytime that we wanted footage or anything that we needed from any part of Gaza, he was there. He was telling us, and he was helping us get that information. And he didn't stop working. He worked 24/7, they told me.
I think some context is really important for those photos with the Hamas leaders and Anas Al-Sharif. One, as you said, he was a celebrity in Gaza. I mean, that was clearly a celebrity selfie with Hamas leaders. The other thing is there's a strong chance, and I don't know if you'd agree with this, but a strong chance he would not be able to operate as a journalist in Gaza without permission from Hamas.
Exactly. We should not forget that Hamas was until recently the government, the official government running the Gaza Strip before the war began, and people had to work with them. They had to get permission and access to be able to do their work. But Marco, this is more than just about one journalist. About 2 weeks after the killing of Anas Al-Sharif, the Israeli military killed another 5 journalists in Gaza. It was when it struck a hospital, and the attack had all the hallmarks of a double tap strike, which can amount to a war crime. That's when a target is hit twice. The second time when the medics and the journalists have arrived at the scene, and these attacks were caught live on camera. We have seen other journalists in Gaza being targeted and killed, and outside Gaza. Just in 2022, Shireen Abu Akleh, another well-known Al Jazeera journalist, Palestinian American, was killed by the Israeli military. Initially, they denied that she was killed by the military, and then an investigation showed that she was in fact killed by the military. Then in 2023, a group of journalists in Lebanon were targeted. A Reuters journalist was killed, and then 6 others were injured as well. We have seen injuries and deaths of reporters while covering this war, and the Israeli military is under scrutiny for this action because targeting journalists is a war crime.
Shirin, with this attrition of Palestinian journalists inside Gaza, what do you think coverage is going to look like, and how will it be impacted in the weeks and months ahead?
It's going to have a huge impact because we rely heavily on what these journalists report from Gaza to be able to know what's going on. One reporter that I talked to, she told me that Her husband was also killed in an Israeli airstrike. He was also a journalist. And she told me something interesting. She said that since we've seen these targeted attacks on journalists, people have become afraid to talk to journalists because they feel like if we are in close proximity to these journalists, what if they're being attacked the moment we're talking to them, and we are going to get killed as well. This war has been covered by the Palestinian journalists living in Gaza. They are covering the story day in and day out while living through it. So finding food, safety, protection, but then also connectivity. Reaching them and talking to them is a big problem. I sometimes try to message as many people on the ground as I can and then wait for a few days until they get back to me, if they get back to me. But then most importantly, the fact that they are being targeted and they feel threatened constantly.
Well, targeting of journalists is obviously one very overt way that Israel can control the story in Gaza. But there are also, we'll call them less obvious ways, more subtle ways, and that is Israel has not allowed any foreign journalists into Gaza. And I'm just wondering how that impacts the whole narrative of the war.
Yes, Israel has not allowed any foreign journalists to go inside Gaza and report independently. There have been media tours and embeds that have taken place with the Israeli military. I have seen the videos of dead children, people being dismembered, the tents being set on fire after airstrikes, and people burning alive in their tents. I reported on these stories. So there is a lot of documentation that is taking place by the Palestinians in Gaza. But not allowing foreign journalists into Gaza does a couple of things. First of all, it puts the pressure only on the Palestinian journalists who are, again, going through a lot. But then also, there is a lot of misinformation and disinformation and trying to discredit what is coming out of Gaza from the Palestinian journalists from different sides. And sadly, if you have international journalists telling the same story, then to some viewers, it might be taken as more credible as the Palestinians.
So I want to talk briefly about embeds, because in the past with conflicts, governments have taken journalists, a select number, and actually embedded them with troops. I think of the war in Iraq, for example, a number of journalists from around the world embedded with U.S. troops to see what was going on the ground. Remind us of the problematic nature of embeds.
Embeds are very choreographed, especially in Gaza. You only see what the Israeli military and the Israeli government wants you to see and wants you to report. For example, I've never seen any reporter going on embeds inside Gaza, talk to any Palestinians who are on the ground, or interview any of the families who have been displaced. It's also very short and limited, and the places that you can go is very restricted. Israel says that this is done because of the safety of the journalists. They want to make sure that, again, this is a war zone. But we have reported in war zones. Yeah. Any of the wars that you mentioned in the past, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, reporters have been able to go on the ground and take into consideration their own safety. But in this case, we don't have that choice. It's either you embed with the Israeli military on these short, very choreographed, selectively chosen location, or there is no access to Gaza. And we have to rely on what is coming out from Palestinian journalists.
Shirin, thank you very much for this conversation, and thank you so much for your reporting.
Thank you, Marco. It was nice talking to you.